This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace.
Last year, I went through many different life changes. I needed to take a pause and examine how I was feeling in the inside to better show up for the ones who need me to be my best version of myself.
When you're navigating life's changes, Talkspace can help. Talkspace is the #1 rated online therapy, bringing you professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatry providers that you can access anytime, anywhere.
Living a busy life, navigating a long-distance relationship, becoming a first-step father, Talkspace made all of those journeys possible. I could speak with my therapist in the office. I could speak with my therapist in the comfort of my home. I was never alone.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance, no problem. Now get $80 off your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
The process thereof.
Yeah, tell me about your divorce and how it actually became a blessing for you.
Well, the background is that we had been married for 20 years with 4 children. And when we first met, I had been through pretty much like a spiritual up level from not really being a spiritual person, being really into pursuing my dreams and my goals and career. But I was also in my late 20s, and I think the biological clock was like, click, 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 let's go. And I was kind of devastated that all my dreams for myself, as far as like financial and professional, hadn't manifested already by my late 20s, which was felt like that was
Crunchy
it.
timeline.
It's either that or you missed it.
You're done.
Exactly. So I was like, well, what can I achieve? Like, okay, marriage and children, So I went to this spiritual organization, the Kabbalah Center, and I kind of had my mind blown by, the magical, fairy incredibleness of everything. That was my experience of it. And I just closed my eyes and jumped. I met this man who seemed like, everything I'd ever wanted, and I seemed like everything he'd ever wanted, and we both wanted a spiritual relationship and a marriage, and we hadn't had kids, and everything seemed perfect. And I guess it was for then, everything in retrospect. We got married. I lived for at least 15 years of our marriage very dedicated to the spiritual practices and techniques of the Kabbalah Center and having those 4 children. And then somewhere along the way, without me realizing it, I can look back and see it, I really began to lose myself. I really began to just fully embody the role of endless caregiver, which as a mother, I think most mothers, if not all mothers, understand that that's anyway required of us to a certain degree, especially when they're little. And then I just went full throttle, like being there for my husband as well. And he was very needy and taking over everything, and then opening a business together and shouldering all of that work. So it was just more and more and more and more. And about 18 and a half years into our marriage, I was really at a crisis point. But it did not even occur to me to ask for a divorce. In my case, because I was the child of divorce, I didn't want to do that to my children. And it literally wasn't even an option in my head. I said to myself, well, I guess this is my lot in life. And, things have been good in the past, and they'll probably be good in the future. And I do believe in the spiritual truism that like attracts like. So if first I was hoping to fix him, I wanted him to go to therapy. I wanted him to go to, 12-step program. I wanted him to do something to help himself. And when I finally had my own rock bottom, in a sense, realizing he wasn't going to do any of those things, I was taking a walk, which is like one of my foundational practices now for myself and that I share with others, just a walk with no phone, no nothing. And it occurred to me, okay, he's going to do whatever he's going to do. I need to do what I need to do to help myself. So I'm going to go check out what's out there to support me. And I looked into regular therapy and I looked into kind of alternative therapy. And I found a woman who's practicing something she called soul hacking. It's like kind of like a meditation therapy. And for the first time in my life, and by then I was in my late 40s, with her help, I was able somehow to meditate, to like settle enough to hear my inner voice and just to settle. And from that seed level, I started doing small practices within my marriage, 10-minute meditation, with a blindfold on in case someone barged in on me so that they'd know. I mean, I had no privacy. I'd start taking a daily walk, for 10, 15 minutes. My family at first was like, where are you going? They were all relying on me. And it was like tiny boundaries, but it turned out they had a huge
no, mom can't leave.
Mom cannot leave.
Well, then everyone wants to go with you.
And I didn't let them, which was big for me. Exactly.
The stress of that.
Yeah. Yeah. But also the freedom that I found in those tiny 10, 15, 20-minute windows I forced onto myself in order to just give myself some time turned out to be really magical propulsion for me into more and more practices of just listening to myself. So cut to a few years later when my husband at the time told me that this actually is not something I generally share publicly, but I'm going to here. He told me that he wanted to sleep with other women. And I was in shock because I did not see that coming. I didn't know what to say. And honestly, he's such a creative, interesting person that I just thought, he's just unhappy. We just need to go to therapy. Like we can get through this too. We got through so much already. But by the second, third, fourth time he was bringing that to me, I was like, oh my goodness, this is actually a red line. Like I always thought his other behaviors might be a red line, but like I said, I hadn't even considered divorce. But all of a sudden, something, I think with all the foundation I had laid for myself in those tiny little ways of allowing windows for me to hear my own inner intuition, in that moment, I heard this tiny little voice say, this is your chance. And I said, so we should divorce? And he nodded, yes. And I was devastated on the one hand, devastated. My 20-year relationship was now at an end, and I had really run from another 5-year relationship before that into this marriage. And, so like many women, I didn't know who I was, and I had completely lost myself, or almost completely. I had begun to regain it, which I think is, the like attracts like, or if one person grows and the other one isn't like you, what happened in my case is they get propelled out, right? Because it's no longer a match. And I was like, whoa, that was the result I hadn't expected. I thought maybe he would kind of up level, if I up leveled spiritually, then he would up level. And I'm not judging him, maybe in his own way he is, but at least in what I was hoping to see happen in our marriage by me working on myself, in a deep way, that didn't happen because I thought he would kind of wind up working on himself or kind of up-leveling. And when that didn't happen, and instead the opposite happened, not by my design, but by his, I understood that this was the universe's way of saying, okay, you're done with that chapter, and now you're in a new chapter. And it's easy to say that now, but honestly, I had about a year where there was this paradox of just rupture and despair. And some days I couldn't lift my body off the floor to take my kids where they needed to go, just unable to stop crying. And, my older daughter was very savvy and she would kind of try to protect the younger kids. And I was really mortified by what my children must be experiencing and going through, and knowing that at that moment, I didn't want to fake anything for them, but at the same time, I wanted to try and help them, shield them, not add to their trauma. But I also had this realization that I just needed to take care of myself in the best possible way. And by doing that, that would be my best chance at helping them. And
Mm-hmm.
luckily, I would say, 4 years out now, that's definitely been borne out, like before my eyes. I can see that the commitment I did wind up making for the first time in my life, really, to myself before all the other people who I felt the shoulds, I should take care of them emotionally. I put myself first, even before the children. And that was something quite new.
Mm-hmm. How did you navigate that? But how old were your kids when you divorced?
When we announced that we were separating, and it happened very quickly, we told them, he and I decided in May of 2022. We told the children in June, and he moved out by July 1st. And at that time, let me do the math. That was 4 years ago, almost exactly. So my kids were basically 8 turning 9 was my youngest. And my younger daughter would have been 12, turning 13. And then my older daughter was 15, and my older son was 17, going on 18. And he told me, my older son, well, I'm going to be okay because, you guys raised me, and now I'm going off, I'm 18, but I'm worried. He was really upset on behalf of his younger siblings, which was so sweet. He just wanted to protect them. He wanted them to have what he had, which was like an intact family. And then I would say for the other three, it definitely had ricocheted through their lives, and still does, definitely, to a degree. Yeah.
I have to, and we're back after that short commercial break. My guest is BatSheva Raissa, and she's a singer, songwriter, actress, stand-up comedian, confidence coach, mega mom of four. And we're here today talking about her um, rupture from divorce after being in a 20-year marriage, and how it was really the beginning of something more beautiful and personal and profound and probably really deeply needed and soul aligned than she could have perceived or thought of had that not happened. So, if you have been with us from the beginning, we've been tapping into how divorce surfaced and became an option, whereas we were discussing, or you were describing, BatSheva, that most of us think, or we're like prescribed into marriage as something that's forever, and you just kind of like stick it out and that's it. And whether or not it's good or bad, like you find a way to make it work. And your choice reveals that that is not necessarily what has to be. And so, if you're listening to this and you are a divorcee, or you are considering divorce, or have been considering divorce and are sitting on that in some way, may this conversation be a guide for you into kind of just shifting perspective on divorce is not something that's awful or the end, but can actually be a portal, or the beginning of something else, or a different kind of identity that you can step into. But before I left for a commercial break, I wanted to ask you, your older son had a more positive and empowered response to the announcement of your separation. But what about the younger ones? Because you said, and I think it's really important to be re-noted, that you made a conscientious choice to tend to your emotional welfare first. Like that, you got to put on your seatbelt first, you got to put on your life jacket first, so you're not even available for helping, supporting, or rescuing other people. But also as a mom, like I can relate to, like that's like it's like swimming in a pool of other people's emotions constantly. And so how did you kind of balance tending to yourself and not having I don't know, like the response of like, leave me alone. I got to take care of myself. Like, how did you hold space for that? Unless you did do that. And then you were like, go away.
I
But I
know.
don't
I
think
think,
that you did.
well, I think I still do occasionally. So let's be
Mm.
real, right? As a mother,
Okay.
sometimes I fail in my objective to be, all that for myself and then be able to be the complete safe space for them. But I have absolutely evolved and continue to evolve in that direction. And it did start with the divorce, with the rupture. That's what's so crazy. I never could have predicted that. And like I said, I didn't want to even consider a divorce for myself. And yet, once it was the reality, and I had this quiet but persistent intuition that this was my second chance at life, at everything, I knew that my kids were part of that. I know energetically as parents, we have more positive effect on our children as we walk the walk versus when we are telling them what to do, what worked for us, what's going to work for them. I know that. I think many of us can figure that out intellectually. And then the challenge in the past for me especially was just not that I didn't actually give myself that space. Well, with the divorce, I mean, every woman's situation is different, but my job was also tied to my ex-husband. We were running a really busy, open 7 days a week coffee shop. And I told him I wanted nothing to do with the coffee shop anymore. So I kind of had two divorces at once. I divorced the job and I divorced him. And I had savings. So I had some financial safety net, but I didn't have a new job. So I really didn't know what I was going to do financially. And yeah, and at the time I had gotten myself a little tiny office just so I could physically get away from everyone. And I remember I would literally lie on the floor of that office. I had put like a fuzzy rug from Target on the floor, like a pink rug, and, just decorated it only for me. It was like the first space I had been able to decorate only for me in years and
Oh.
years. And I would just lie there on the floor and listen to meditations and or cry and or listen to this audio book that my friend gifted me called Outrageous Openness by Tosha Silver. And the whole thesis of this book is let the divine take the lead. You don't decide what's next. The divine will decide. And I was thinking to myself my whole life, I pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And that's how I was raised, that you make things happen. And even with the manifesting mindset, you think about it and that's what your goal is and you envision it. And I had done all that and I had kind of just run out of steam. So it was my up level as a parent happened because I had run out of options. Literally, I was just kind of like
Mm.
done. I was like, nothing I have done has worked to get me to a place where I am really happy. I'm not really happy right now. Even that I got all the things I wanted. I wanted a marriage. I wanted 2 boys, 2 girls. I got that. Like, not many people are able to get everything they want. And I got a lot of things I wanted. And yet I still was in this place of like misery and abandonment and sadness. And luckily, allowing a lot of positive voices into my head. That's why I love like your podcast. I love all of the audiobooks and podcasts that are now available everywhere, the apps, because anyone at any time can just plug in and just allow someone's voice to kind of like soothe and almost brainwash and indoctrinate them to be their own guru. That's what happened with me. It wasn't like this time I was getting indoctrinated in some other religion or some other methodology. I was choosing the people very carefully, curating the people I would listen to in my, moments of being alone. Those were voices that would soothe me, that would make me feel I wasn't alone and I wasn't fucking crazy. And also voices that would encourage me just to keep following my intuition. And at that point, my intuition told me, don't go running to another job. Don't go do this. Go spend money on a manicure and getting your hair dyed. I mean, your roots dyed. Go spend, go buy yourself a piece of jewelry. And I was like, okay. So I I did feel intuitively that these weren't like super reactive, like, some of us can easily convince ourselves that, another direction is the way to go and that'll heal everything. I did have an intuition that for some reason I needed to do these things, treating myself like a precious object, that would make me strong. I wrote that mantra down, actually have it on my wall. Treat yourself like a precious object. It makes you strong. And I would find those mantras, all is well, everything's happening for my highest, out of this experience, only good shall come, or release and relax. And over and, I still have them in my car. I look at them and I still am. I'm in the process. And ever since my divorce, I'm like intentionally brainwashing myself into a state where I am soothed and I can make the right decisions for myself. And then that in turn definitely set me up for success to be able to handle when the children, to your question, when the children come with all their energy and all their individuality and all their challenges, which it's never ending, 100% never ending. I have a lot more inner resilience and inner strength. And even the coaching practice that I have, it happened by accident because I was in a writing class with some other women and I was writing my guts out on the page and then we would share. And I was the only one like sobbing as I'm reading. And because I really believe that writing can be therapeutic. It is therapeutic for those of us who, use it for that. And a young mother approached me after one of the classes and basically asked if I would mentor her as a writer. But it turned out what that wound up being is like the seed level for the coaching program that only came because she saw me as a very real, normal, kind of broken but healing myself person who was in a place that she wanted to be. And she's not divorced, but it was just about, she had had a really devastating childbirth and it was during the pandemic. And, each one of us has these stories that adds to this trauma that we need help. We need help to release. And I know that I was able to help other people because of how I was learning to help myself. That was it. Yeah.
What kind of methodology have you developed, or what frameworks do you use to help people?
I decided to use all the things I used for myself that helped me. And it kind of came to me in a flash with this one particular, the first client. I had this flash in my head of the W method, not just for women, but for witness, because I knew the power of having an empathetic witness to hear you and to just be there for you and hold space for you. And I also knew the power of myself being my own empathetic witness, to be able to go within and do something that I now call witness within, where it's also been called radical gratitude, which is close to your podcast name. But, it's like this idea that you can settle into yourself and witness your emotions as they come up and welcome them and invite them and thank them and release. You have often, I have like, let's say emotional release, and then I feel much better. And somehow the W was mainly for witness, but I wound up thinking, oh, that's my daily walk. That's my write and reply. And that's my one tool that I learned from that one author, Tosha Silver. She shares this amazing tool when we feel like just furious or anger or different like emotions. I have a stash of coconuts now, thanks to her. And my kids use them too, because we've all learned the technique. And you grab a coconut, you meditate all your anger and fury into it, and then you smash the shit out of it on the ground and, outside, and you don't eat it. You throw it away after. It's got all your, and you feel so much lighter. It's just so freeing. And so I turned that into Reconnected with a W. I just basically took it from the Artist's Way, which is another modality. I love this book so much. It's a workbook. Oh, right. I mean, I did that
Julia
again.
Cameron. Yeah.
Sorry, what were you saying?
The Julia Cameron book.
Cameron, exactly. I had done it in my 20s, and then 30 years later at my divorce, I decided to do it again. So for the morning pages, I still do those. And she also offers so many great techniques, including something called the Artist's Date, which, again, using the W, I turned into Wander the World. So I somehow use the W to kind of tie all these techniques together. But in the end, the technique was just the different techniques from all the different people who and spiritual systems and trial and error that I had used for myself and that had worked profoundly on myself. And then the underpinning of everything, it's a technique that I do every day with I also have a podcast, and she and my podcast partner and I, we met at a 10-day silent meditation retreat that I went to after my separation. And she had recommended an amazing book called Pussy, a Reclamation,
Yeah.
which is an incredible life-changing book for me anyway. And there was a technique in that book that Chelsea, my friend, she lives in Missouri. We don't even live in the same state, but she wanted to try this technique together. And over time, we made it our own, and we call it the Daily W. And every single day, we leave each other an audio message at the end of the day or the beginning of the day. If it's the beginning of the day, it's about yesterday. And you leave 3 wins, 3 wows, and 3 wishes for that day in an audio text for your partner. And then they listen and they reply, an empathetic, just loving reply that they've heard and witnessed, and kind of reflect back to you. And then they leave their daily W's, and you do the same. So you do both every single day. So now for almost 3 years, I've been doing this technique. So that for me, yeah, that was like actually the biggest. I should have led with that.
Consistency.
I know. I mean, we have the same sort of disciplined mindset, she and I. So really, it doesn't work for everyone. I did use it for all my clients, and I will say some take to it. Everyone loves it. And I'm their witness, and I don't share with them. I just have them leave me an audio text, and then I listen and I reply. And I did it initially every single day, and then I realized I needed to give myself some, days off. But the brilliance of this technique is that it's like a built-in reflection of your deepest, if you're willing to be super honest and authentic. So sometimes the win is that you're devastated, but you let yourself cry. Like, I'm bragging about that today. That's my win. And the wow, which is what you're grateful for. I'm grateful for all my emotions, because even as I can barely see through the darkness, I'm grateful that I can even talk about it, and that I know somehow there has to be the light at the end of the tunnel, even if I do not feel it. And being able to voice that to someone who cares about you, and then hearing back from them, comfort and reflection, it's freaking life-changing. And so that was the underpinning that I built with the W method. And that's the Daily W. Yeah, I could not more highly recommend that tool, literally. Yeah.
That's really cool. And and there's something so potent about being witnessed as well. And especially being witnessed and held in your high, I'm a coach as well. And I coach people to their higher selves, right? So I coach people to witness them as they describe themselves as they want to be, to help bridge that.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
Gap of what they might be floundering around in or snapping back to or creating old patterns from, but to be held to a higher standard and witnessed that way and seen that way helps you not only see yourself that way, but behave that way. It's like the particle wave theory, when a molecule is observed, it turns from a particle to a wave, but only the act of observation makes it change. It's like the same
So
thing that
beautiful.
happens to humans.
Ooh, I love it.
Because you know how you're different around different people, right? Like if I'm talking to you, you make me feel fun and excited and oh yeah, as I'm seeing in myself the things that I'm being reflected by your narrative. But if you're talking to somebody who's very negative or pessimistic, and you're not that way, you almost retract, right? It's like, I don't want to share with this person, doesn't hold space for my aliveness, right? It's like that act of witnessing. And I think that that's like a really important element that's not even brought in a lot of the time, or even, pointed out, because we're always being witnessed by our children, if you have them, your pets, your bosses, your clients, the neighbors. And like, how does that witnessing change you? So to make like an intentional witnessing space as a foundation for a practice or a container is really interesting. And I actually haven't ever heard it brought up that way. So I think that's a really nice element. And I love the incorporation of all the W things, like alliterations and abbreviations are so much easier to remember, and to keep somebody inside of, like, what was I supposed to do today? XYZ. No, I just stick to my W's. Like,
Yes.
what are my W's?
Yes.
Yeah.
Keep it simple. And
Totally.
actually, I had so much fun with it. When you cut cords in a meditation, I said, oh, it's wirings. We're pulling out the wires. And then
Mm.
there was, it came up too, not everybody is like me. I love to write, and I'm a writer, and I'll write and reply, and I'll journal, and I'll write endlessly with a prompt. But some people are just, in fact, Chelsea, this friend who was my Daily W partner, my podcast partner, my friend, she doesn't love writing, but we have talked about voice journaling, which is something that I started doing because I just needed more. I needed the most support I could ever have in those couple of years after my divorce. I mean, I needed everything. I needed a friend. I needed a therapist. I needed myself. I needed the books. I needed it all. And so thankfully, I have something in me that seeks out help. I think that I'm lucky to have that. And I found, like you said, like who witnesses you is also important also, like that reflection. And I found this amazing technique. I found it. I don't know. I figured it out doing it. I'm sure I'm not the first person to have done it, but it's basically, I'll be in my car usually when I'm doing it, and I'll be feeling big emotions. I turn on my voice memo on my phone, and I just start talking to myself. And I'm like, well, this is stupid, but I don't know what to do. And I don't want to, I can't reach X, Y, and Z who I would try and call. And then I just start telling myself, it's like talking to God out loud is what I realized later, but it's a little more, let's say, reasonable for the logical mind to be able to handle this technique versus like talking to God, which may feel esoteric and may take us out of our internal world. And there was something about pushing record. I don't really need to do that anymore, but for the first 2 years, that really made the difference. And by the way, I would just discard it when I was done. It wasn't like I kept them, but
Mm-hmm.
it was just the mechanism of having it recorded allowed me to get real with myself and be honest like you would on the pages of a journal, and just
Mm-hmm.
say what you really think. And you curse, and you can, say all the meanest things about all the most precious people to you, because you just have to get it out. And then the
Mm-hmm.
poison, once it's out, because it's been articulated, in this case, in a sense, to an empathetic witness, which is yourself, and or God, the creator, whatever, then that was also really powerful. So I decided that like your inner voice and your outer voice was two V's, and you put them together and that makes a W.
Yeah.
So,
Emerging.
yes, exactly.
So
Yeah.
true. It's so true. I mean, it's such a simple thing, but it deserves being said as a technique that people can use, because you don't always have your sister or your neighbor or your best friend available. Everyone's so busy, like busy should be a four-letter word that,
Mm.
well, that's another thing. I won't go off on a tangent, but yeah, we're all fucking busy, and there's not always that point of contact that can hold space. And even when there is, a lot of the time people have a hard time listening, even though they're really well intended, or they love you and
Yeah.
you have a good connection with them. You'll want and need to talk, and that person will turn it into a I also feel that way situation, which is something we kind of naturally do to bond ourselves with other people. But it takes away from the witnessing. It takes away from the story that needs to be told, or like the testimony that needs to come out. And so it's a
Yes.
bit of a derailment sometimes, because then it dilutes the initial intent of that kind of modality of witnessing. So I love that you just mentioned this. It's like a duh kind of thing, but like, yeah, it's actually
I
really
know.
potent and powerful, and you don't have to keep it. No one needs to hear
Exactly.
it
No,
later.
100% not. I'm not a journal keeper. I throw my journals when I'm done with them, which is, I know, kind of
Mm,
radical. I don't even hold on to them because for me, it's not a diary that I'm planning to look back on and use to write a memoir. It's just a dump. Like I just need to get it
yeah.
out, but it's a
Mm,
truth dump. So I'm as honest.
mine
And
too,
I
a
think
truth dump.
again, yeah, and the more
Yeah.
honest we are, the more healing happens, whether it's
Hmm.
to our empathetic witness, whether it's to ourselves. I think the depth of our honesty, and that's sometimes what can be the most hard, just that internal shame of like feeling a certain way about something or not wanting to be mean, let's say, or put that out in the world or be negative, or, there's all these things that even well meaning spiritual people, we learn that words have power. And so maybe we don't want to say, fuck you, God. But maybe that's
Hmm.
what needs to be said in the journal or
Hmm.
in the voice journal or to your empathetic
Hmm.
witness because you're feeling like that everyone has left you in the world. And,
Hmm.
and then that is the thing that is the alchemy to bring you. But you wouldn't know that until you risk it all and say it and say the
Hmm.
truth. And then because I've done it, so I can tell you on the other side, you're like, oh, I don't hate you at all. I love you. Thank you for, you know what I mean? You just like
It
sort of had to,
changes,
it
right? It like
changes.
creates this different,
Yeah.
it changes the alchemy. Like when things are suppressed and unsaid and secretive, it creates this like shamefulness around it almost, and it like acts upon you and it becomes part of your subconscious programming that's like acting upon you. But when you make that conscious, when you bring it into like the forefront of the brain and it can come out and into the open, it's like, oh, that's not killing me. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't need to hold that. And it creates like a discharge on these things that might otherwise feel shameful or we don't want people to see or it doesn't make us look good or like this isn't appealing or attractive. It's like, yeah, that's
And
not,
I think it's,
and you don't need to carry it around with you.
but I think it's fair to say that in the moment, myself included, I'll almost never remember that. Like, when we're in the darkest of the dark moment. And so then what's so valuable is if we can build the scaffolding around ourselves already, where we have the coach or the podcast that we listen to that uplifts us or the workout that we do that just like changes our brain chemistry and makes us happier. I would really not only say, or I would say, and like the more the merrier, and the walk and the coach and the
Hmm.
friend and the daily W partner and the witness and the joyful creative outing and the journaling. And then when we are in that place where we really can't see up or down, we get carried through by those forces of structure and support around us. And then we get to the other side and then we pay it forward to our kids, to our friends,
Mm.
to ourselves, to our witnesses, because somehow that seems to be, anyway, my experience so far of the process, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And it ties back into you have to be able to at least ask for that, seek it out, provide it for yourself in some way. No one's going to give that to you. And I feel that many people suffer, many women in particular, suffer way longer than needed because they just can't, for some, whatever the blockage is, claim something for themselves or feel like I deserve it or I'm not a bad mom or I'm a bad person. If I take this 20-minute walk by myself, it doesn't mean I hate them. It doesn't mean anything. It means that
Correct.
I'm caring and nurturing for myself, which has gotten so far out of control. Like it's really gotten where I think we're
Yes.
coming out of that
Yeah.
collectively, like in 2026. But for God knows like how long it's been this like feminine mother female like binding to the home and binding to the family, and it's like there's so much responsibility because we don't live in villages and communities anymore, and like we shoulder all of that. It's like it's become unbearable. Like I relate. I'm not pondering divorce as it were, but I can relate to so much of what you're saying. It's like the that pressure just mounts and mounts and mounts, and if it is not supported by a partner, then the partner that there's going to be a rupture. If it's not supported by work that nourishes you, like there's going to be a rupture. Like something's going to have to, it's going to blow like a volcano, just like we are nature, we are natural in that way. Like weather moves through us.
Mm.
But I have another question for you, which is about your creative processes and or your creative outlets. And how do you, this is like more of a tactical question, I guess, but how do you manage applying yourself to those things as well as being a mom, because you're always a mom, but I think some of your kids still live with you at least.
Yes, totally.
And how do you create a balance in life? Because I know so many people, and myself included, like hunger and desire at one time had a very active creative life, maybe, or at least some pursuit or hobby, if not into some professionalism in some of that. How do you manage keeping those things afloat and alive and in a balance of life that feels like, because in speaking to you, you sound like a very healthy, grounded person, like you're not going crazy in one direction. So,
Right.
how would you say you maintain equilibrium across those things, if that's what you would call it?
I do. And I continue to, and I have to adjust it depending on my circumstances. And I think that's probably the best advice I can give other moms because, in other words, when we have a bunch of tiny babies and or toddlers and or young children, what's available to us is so different from what's available to me right now that I have two grown and two more or less that I do need a babysitter for my youngest. I can't leave him by himself in the evening, but there's more autonomy there, of course, than there was. And so I can do more now than I could, 4 years ago when the separation first happened or during the marriage. Like you said, same problem. Absolutely. That affects all women who are mothers, whether or not we're married. And by the way, I also wanted to just offer to anyone who's married, don't be afraid to to sometimes feel like you want a divorce because often just to allow yourself even to speak that out loud again brings you to the other side and you're like, oh, we're good. It's almost that same
Mm.
thing, like not to be afraid. I think I regret being so afraid to even allow myself to think about it. But
Mm.
um, regarding the creative process, I mean, I think the best advice that I took from the Julia Cameron book, The Artist's Way, was just to figure out what would light me up, just what lights me up, and how can I do that that's practical. So, like in a perfect world, I would love to be, a rock star, or maybe an alternative person, would be a rock or a pop star. And so, can I go to karaoke like
Mm.
once in a while with friends, and just sing my heart out? Can I go take a singing class? Or, I was never a dancer. My older sister is an incredible dancer, but I always longed to be a dancer. And now in my 50s, my early 50s, I am a dancer. I'm dancing. And I mean,
Yeah.
because I just took a class and I just kept showing up. And like 5, 6 years later, it turns out I go to a new class. They go, "Oh, you're a dancer," and I'm like thinking to myself, "Yeah, since 5 years ago." Like, really, it's only pretty recent. But it just, the message is like it's actually never too late to just sort of lean into these things that light up your heart. Like, first, just kind of connect with what is it that you loved when you were younger, like you said, before you had all the responsibilities, and or you could imagine loving now. Is it creative writing? Is it some things are easier to do? I have a little WhatsApp group of other creative writer moms, and we do a prompt. We offer a prompt every week, and we do a 10-minute write. We record it on the audio to the WhatsApp, and then we give each other loving and supportive feedback on the write. So that feels amazing. It's a creative endeavor.
Hmm.
Again, I'm not. And by
Hmm.
the way, from that a few years ago, now I have a Substack out, and I actually do. I was going to say you don't have to do anything with it, but personally, because I have more time, I have begun to put things out there more. Like the stand-up comedy you mentioned, that was a class I took just for fun because
Hmm.
I had one night that I could book the babysitter and have my night. And I really recommend, moms, give yourself one night a week, even if it's not every week, even if it's every other, but try for every week. Either have the husband babysit, even in all his chaos, if that's what's happening, or, hire a babysitter and invest in yourself, which is what that is. And then just like go take that acting class, or because just the act of doing the class with other people
Hmm.
is so nourishing, and it
Love
just
it.
leads to that joy,
Hmm.
right? It's
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm. Oh, I
that's
miss
it.
it. Like I
What is
lived
it for
in,
you?
well, I lived in San Francisco for like all of my 20s, early 30s, and like it's such a mecca of, you're in LA, so you get it, but like it's everywhere and it's so accessible, and it's like that's not available for everybody. But when I was swimming in it, like that's all I did. And then I would just like bartend and do gigs and
Mm.
serve tables so that I could go, be in the theater and like make stand up and make projects and do art and just like invest myself. Because if you don't have dependence, you have so much more
It's so
choice,
much freedom. I mean,
so
a
much
lot of my
freedom.
friends now don't have children. They're my age and they're in their 30s, and I it's so funny. They just keep getting shocked that they forget that I have kids. But at the same time, luckily, since the pandemic, everything's moved on to Zoom as well. I would say it's not as ideal as doing in person because there is that magic of being with the people in the
Yeah,
room.
yeah.
But I would even suggest if you can't do an in-person class or an event or excursion or experience, book the babysitter and then do the Zoom. So, or I don't know how, or you bring yourself to the public library or bring yourself somewhere where the kids really can't interrupt you no matter what.
Hmm.
And then, I mean, the first stand-up class I took, I was still married. My friend Precious Chong, Tommy Chong's daughter, she's in Canada, and she was teaching a Zoom class, and I took it, and that was like the seed level of that awakening for me with stand-up comedy. And um, there's so much online acting classes. I mean, even dance and movement, people do it, on Zoom,
Oh
on
yeah,
video.
I know.
So just don't give up on yourself. That's my advice. Don't do it. You're worth it. You're worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. Start finding the reasons why you can and how you can rather than dancing and, making out with all the reasons why you can't and making that monster so big. It's like it's so big for so many people. And I will say it, like even people who are not married with kids have a lot of that. I can't do it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But to flip that over and just like argue for why you can. You're arguing why you can't. You're literally, I hear people speak like this often. Many of them are my clients, like why they can't do something. And I'm saying to them, you're arguing for the case against yourself. You need to take that energy and put it into finding solutions and possibility and even the smallest experience of that. So then you want more of it because people will do whatever the fuck they want. They will find money for whatever they want. They will find time for whatever they want. And it's such a simple twist of perspective that takes the experience of having like, oh, I gave myself that. Yes. Woo-hoo, like naughty me. Like, but it feels so good. And then you want more of it. And then you keep going. And then it becomes part of your identity and your lifestyle. So I
Yeah.
loved speaking to you. I love it. Like I do these things a bit. Like my youngest is 4, so I'm like climbing out of those woods
Yep.
of wiping butts and sleepless nights and like kicking me in the face in my bed. And it's all what it is. It's like it's all that
Yep.
this messiness. But okay, so I have a question for you. Do you have any jokes about divorce?
Well, let's see. I have a lot of dating app jokes.
Oh, let's hear
A
one.
lot. Oh, you want to hear one? Let's
Yeah.
see. Okay. Well, I was very surprised to find out it was a whole new world because I'd been out of the dating world. I was married, and when I got on the apps, I didn't know what to expect. But I really did not know what all of the categories meant. So you can put on your profile you're a foodie, you like to travel, but there was an acronym that some of the men that I would be browsing would have on their profile, ENM, which I had to Google. Turns out it stands for ethical non-monogamy. And
Okay.
I thought, well, I went to college and I was an English major. Non-monogamy is not a word. That word is cheating. And just because you put the word ethical in front of it, like, what are we teaching our children? What should I take my son to the store and he grabs the candy and I say, no, babe, we got to pay for that. Otherwise, it's stealing. Oh, wait, you're practicing ethical non-purchasing, and on and on and on, and I have more jokes like, oh, and why don't I need a cat, and it's really hard to figure out who you're sexually compatible with, so I need a category that really helps me know that, like ENPE, ethical non-premature ejaculation. So that's yeah, that's there's that.
Ah, I love it. Do you have any
Thank
like
you.
perimenopausal jokes?
Oh, well, my girlfriend is the queen of those, I will say. But yes, let's bring menopause. I actually talked about how when I was in the middle of going through perimenopause, menopause, um, I didn't do drugs, but I felt like I didn't have to because I was on my own trip. So I'd be having
Mm.
coffee with a girlfriend, and all of a sudden the waiter would come by to see if we needed anything, and my whole body would get so hot. I would just have to stand up and start fanning myself, and everything just goes to black and, comes back into focus. And it's like an M hole. People talk about a K hole, and I was in the M hole, the menopausal hole. And uh, yeah, and don't need to do
So
drugs. I
it's
had
free
my own
drugs.
internal. Yeah, it's free. It was free drugs. Exactly.
Free
So people,
drugs.
people, people knock it, but don't knock it till you've tried it. And once you've tried it, you can knock it because
And you can get high on your
it's a
own
roller coaster.
supply. Yeah.
You can get high in your own supply. Thank you. That's my new tagline. I needed
Totally.
a tag.
Menopause. High on your own
Ah,
supply.
I love
Oh,
it.
cool. Well, it's been so fun to talk to you.
You too.
I'm excited to be divorced at 50. No, just kidding. I don't know that that's my route, but you paint a much more empowered portrait and picture and living example of what that actually can be.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, so thank
Yeah.
you for your story sharing and your experience sharing. And where can people find you who want to know more about you, who are interested in working with you?
The coaching program, it's the website, the-confidence-coach.org. Um, but I think it's a better place to start, even just going to either my Instagram at BatSheva Raissa, because that's kind of like a hub, or the podcast that I co host with my friend Chelsea, the Brighter podcast, which we're on YouTube as well, or all the streaming platforms. And this is the kind of thing, it's the collective, it's what you're doing, it's what we're doing. We're just telling personal stories, we're sharing techniques that work for us, and we're uplifting each other and getting real. And I think it's important to just remind people they're not alone. The guru is you. You're your own guru, and it is never fucking too late. Never.
Mhm. No.
That's the message.
It's a great
Yes.
message. Thank you for
Yes.
reframing like middle age and, singledom and single
Yes.
parenting, and like it's not a curse, like sometimes it is a blessing, or
It's
like
a
an
rebirth, actually.
answered
It's a
prayer,
total
rebirth.
rebirth. Yes. And
Yeah.
I know people in our society, we're all, myself included, we were brought up to focus on how we look and the aging of the body and getting really caught up in that and worried about that. But there's also ways to just continually pull our consciousness away from that stupidity and
Hmm.
realize it's all about the joy that we feel and that we experience and that we put out. And in my case, I want to see more role models of women my age, younger, older, doing their thing, because there's not enough right now in the world. Like, I
Hmm.
need to be the role model that I wanted to see in the world, and
Hmm.
so we all need to do it to help each other, to help our
Hmm.
children, help the future generations. Yeah,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, step up and do the thing. Just do the thing,
Do
be
the
your own
thing.
witness. Yeah,
Yes,
be witnessed.
yes,
Allow
yeah,
more visibility in your lives, dear listener, whatever that means to you, wherever you find yourself stuck. It's like usually a symptom of an unexpressed soul wound that is trying to surface, I find, or whatever language you want to place on that. But it's like when we are depressed or when we're stuck or we feel, it's like there's an unexpressed piece missing that will come. It will surface
it will.
in whatever way it needs to, like an eruption or rupture. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that either. It's like we can titrate, we can allow it to come. And sometimes it does come in big waves, and sometimes it happens in like smaller pieces and sequences. So honor yourself where you are in your journey. Go check out BatSheva on her online presence and in her offerings, and I'll put those links in the show notes. And it's been a total pleasure to have you and so fun to talk to you. And enjoy your burning hot LA weather as my sky just opened and like dumping
that's
rain.
A sign. Oh, it's opened and dumped rain. Okay, all right. Cleansing.
It's a cleanse, yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a joy to talk to you. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. And we'll be back next week with another episode of The Radical Healing. Talk to you soon. Thank you so much for being here.
Bye.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.